Welcome. We are live in INI Living Conversations. I am Julian Katari, and I want to present to you Blue Hair and Woman. How are you doing, Blue Hair and Woman?
I'm sensacional.
Excellent.
I
And
like to say that word.
we're having a 202nd conversation, and with this 202 number, which is kind of a pretty number, I think, 202, we're going to talk about two genders. We're going to talk about manhood and womanhood. And to start this conversation, before you start giving us this research that you dig out of the deep places of who knows where, because you're keen on finding all the information that we should be finding, and that is not what is being taught in many places.
Yeah.
So before you start that, I want to frame this teaching with the question: is manhood and womanhood something that is naturally determined? I mean, because we could say that's kind of, yeah. I mean, we do have. I mean, it's that discussion. It shouldn't be a discussion. There is men and women. There's only two genders, and that, of course, gives us certain traits, etc. But beyond that, is our gender roles a natural thing? How much of that is natural and how much of that is just a social construct?
I think it's about a 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's about a 50-50. We don't know. We don't know what the anthropologists can only tell us what they suppose the Neanderthals or early Paleolithic area hunter-gatherers, if they had gender roles of manhood and womanhood. We only know what's been since the Roman Empire, basically.
The 2,000 years of registered history, and there could be other civilizations we knew very little about, and I think they're relevant to us. They should be relevant to us because, in a way, they try to transmit their knowledge too.
Yeah, and I googled rites of passage for manhood, and there's lots of weird. I mean, like tribes in New Guinea, they there's, oh man, there's these poor boys, what they have to do to be classified as a man. So that's the cultural part, right? The bullshit. So
you know what's the Chichimek rite of passage for men? Chichimek is the hunters in the central northern parts of Mexico, which are now gone. There's some descendants, but they would, and I got told by one of the descendants the story. They would, but it was kind of nice. They would paint you with white, all with white, and they would let you out into the desert, and all your friends would hunt you down with bows and arrows. And if you survived, you made it.
Holy shit.
And they would like really try to shoot you. And you were painted white.
So you were obvious.
You were easy to spot because it was on at night.
Wow.
And if you survived the night, you would be a man.
Wow. See, yeah, all that kind of stuff is cultural. There's nothing about that that's natural. So cultural, created by man. So I think that's something we need.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, we need to explore, because I'm going through the archetypes of what it has been. So maybe we need to. This is something we need to explore. In our Uddlevilles is. Are there truly? I mean, we can explore rites of passage, but do we need to do stupid shit like that?
Well, when I told me
Traumatic?
that story, it sounded like fun, because he then told me that he's like, well, yeah, it's not a big deal when if you're already grown. I'm out because then you're not forced into that.
Oh, okay.
You choose to
So
go through that.
are they actually trying to kill? Or are they
Yeah, he says
just,
that if you chose to do that is because you were confident enough in your in 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 your hunting skills that's you wouldn't that you would just be able to not get shot.
well, kind of, I mean, that kind of makes sense because in reading about indigenous economics today, and how the they would develop a relationship with the animal and observe it.
Hmm.
You learn how to
Yeah,
become,
it's part of this training into becoming very powerful with the land and with your own confident
yeah,
in hunting and knowing how to hide and how to uh, be with the land and be like a master of the land.
yeah, that
And
okay,
normally, I think it would if you're gonna choose to do that, you were kind of already older than the friends. You're kind of like the oldest
yeah.
one, kind of.
Well, that
So
would
you
be
would choose
kind of
that if
like,
you were confident you were gonna pull it off.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That would be kind of like going to special forces training then for the military.
Okay. Plus, it's bow and arrow. It's not. It's not a rifle
Yeah, it's
with
not rifle,
sight.
but
It's
bow
not
and
even
arrow.
night vision. And
Yeah.
cool. So
So,
what's this going to be about the
well,
manhood and womanhood? I'm eager
we're gonna
to learn.
explore we're gonna explore archetypes
Okay.
that govern us, that we go through. So, um, fire in the belly. This is the hara. This fire in the belly means the hara that the Japanese were so intent on developing uh, around World War II, pre-World War II, and it's kind of dropped off for them now too. But it's on being fire in the belly. Developing your hara is becoming a divine human, basically knowing your inner strength, your inner connectedness. Because with the Japanese, with Shintoism, it's all about spirits. It's then they're connected. That's what developing your hara is connection. So um, there are two questions every young man and woman must ask themselves as they're growing up: is where am I going and who will go with me? And I know we don't. But in the accepted mythology of our time, men are independent and women are dependent. Men dominate and women yield. Men make history and women provide emotional support. Folklore has it that men are phobic about intimacy and they're tongue-tied about emotions. Then the message is given that real men don't depend on women. But over the last century, one solid truth established by psychologists is that the human psyche is constructed out of opposites, paradoxes, and contradictions. So most of us never break free from all the dogma and theories that swirl and keep us in a perennial war between the sexes or in our positions. Most of us are committed to remaining unconscious and out of touch with our own deepest feelings and experience, and we don't define manhood or womanhood by waiting and testing our own experiences. So the chains that bind us most tightly are those that we refuse to acknowledge. One of the major tasks of manhood and womanhood is to explore the unconscious feelings that surround his images of women or her images of man, to dispel false mystification, to dissolve the vague sense of threat and fear, and finally, to learn to respect and love the strangeness of each other.
Mm.
It may be useful to think about spiritual sexual maturation or the journey of manhood, the journey of womanhood, as a process of changing, for him, woman in all caps, into woman, and then finally into Jane or Ingrid or, whoever might it up for you, right? Woman is, right, this big, huge monster type of thing. And for woman, it is that man in our heads. And I discovered that man for myself, having been raised a staunch Christian. And I think that's probably it for most of us, is that God was portrayed in the Bible as a man who rejects willy-nilly. He demands blind obedience and rejects us willy-nilly. And that, for us women, is, man, he's fucking going to reject me for whatever I do.
Mm-hmm.
That came to me loud and clear this last week as I was writing this, and then, wow, I didn't realize I still had that belief. I left the church a long time ago. I haven't read the Bible for a very long time. I've dumped all I hadn't dumped that belief yet because I didn't remember it was there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, knowing that it is that woman or that man in our heads that is more than the woman or the man in our beds who causes most of our problems.
Mm.
And then the archetypal creatures. For men, it's goddesses, bitches, angels, madonnas, castrators, witches, and whatever else that labels have been given women that must be exorcised from his mind and heart before men can learn to love women. And for the women, it would be lying, cheating, asshole, dumb shit, God, Adonis, if he's got a wonderful, I couldn't think of what. There's no book about this for women. Whatever other titles we've given, man, cheater, and not cheater, I already said that. Rejector, right?
Okay.
Whatever we women call men must be exorcised from our hearts and minds before we can truly learn to love men. So it's both ways. So let's look at the archetype of woman as goddess and creatrix.
Mm.
Woman was, is, and always will be goddess and creatrix, and I disagree with this, and we're going to talk about this. So this is what's standard, though. This is kind of what we believe, and then we're going to talk about how it needs to be changed. So she is the womb from which we sprang, the ground of our being. As creatrix, woman addresses an inescapable challenge to a man to justify his existence, because she gives birth to meaning out of her body. Biology alone assures her of a destiny of making a significant contribution to the ongoing drama of life. And men have been taught to rise to this challenge, to respond to this challenge by simulating creating, by making, fabricating, and inventing artifacts. So while she creates naturally and literally, he has been taught to create artificiality with contempt. She creates from her corpus or her body, so he has been taught to invent a corporation, a fictitious legal corpus, bodies with endowed rights as a natural person. And this is what we've talked about. This is absolutely true. This is why we have straw man corporations. This is right.
Mm-hmm.
She creates from her corpus, and he has been taught to invent a corporation, fictitious legal bodies with endowed rights as a natural person. Her creation sustains the eternal cycle of nature. He has been taught to create himself in the image of a God he imagines has fabricated the world like a craftsman, working with a blueprint to shape matter into meaningful objects. And now in the machine age, the purpose has maybe been to create a perfect mechanical baby like an automobile, a machine that moves by itself and is capable of perpetual motion and is fed its daily bottle of petroleum and has its pollution diapered. But before we go on, let's look at this concept of woman as creator. we've got to talk about the whole concept of creation here and how it's been so distorted. First of all, the dictionary definition of create is cause to exist. Does a woman cause a baby to exist?
Not really.
No.
It just happens.
Not really. No.
It creates itself, man.
So what does the woman actually do to cause the baby to exist? Well, she has sex with a man whose sperm joins with her egg. The rest of the 9 months, she actually has absolutely no part in creation of anything. The baby is formed, not created, by 8 metabolic fields. I think we need to get this, the difference between...
Because this is leaving all those discussions that they have on podcasts that millions of people watch, where they have one guy talk, they got the Christian talk to the atheist, to the spiritual guy, and all of those would be left quiet if they just heard this concept of we're born, not created.
Well, but we're birthed, but first we're formed. We're formed, not created, because the dictionary definition is to bring out of existence. If the invisible fabric of creation, of everything that exists, that has been formed, always is and has and is only transformed into various forms, we cannot be fucking created. We can't be brought to existence. We're formed.
Mm-hmm.
We're not created, we're formed. Mm. And the baby, as we've discovered already before, the fetus is formed by 8 metabolic fields. What does metabolic mean? Metamorphosis.
Okay.
Meta is beyond. So beyond the control of the woman, metabolic fields form. Inform, right? Because everything in the universe is a packet, every proton of light is a packet of information. Information, not in creation. It's information. So we're not created, we're formed. Every single thing in the world is formed, not created. There is nothing. This is where this stupidity of creation. I brought this into, no. You didn't bring anything into existence. You formed it out of what's already there.
Okay, yeah, I'm liking it.
So now we've been conditioned, programmed, and domesticated to believe that we were created by a God that watches us, loves us, and demands obedience as proof of loyalty. And as we've seen from Spinoza's theories and now quantum science, there is no craftsman out there that has shaped us each individually out of dust. This means our existence was not granted by an external creator. So bringing it down to a woman, yes, she decides when she wants to have a baby, or man and woman do together. And again, the only part of creating is the sexual intercourse.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the challenge then is less to men to create, to find meaning, is if we thought of women as baby formation experiencers and birthers rather than creators.
Yeah.
And then if we taught our boys that light or quantum consciousness or energy wants to form new complexity all the time, and through the descending eros or feminine power that divides into both eros and logos, masculine power, a man can also birth an idea. As we know from quantum physics that all particles are packets of information, so ideas in formation. So men can also be birthers, just you can't birth 2-legged babies, but you can birth ideas and use your hands to form that idea into a physical thing. Like the Cooper forms a tree into barrels. That would then relieve man of the need to create a corpus or corporation.
Mm.
And I'll be exploring this more. This is just, right, not a, it'll come. But yeah,
Mhm.
I really think we need to shift from creation to formation. So, woman as mother is food, everlasting arms, teacher of language and philosophy, the horizon in which we live and move and have our being. Her face was our first mirror. A newborn is programmed for instant face recognition and will spend 90% of its waking time focused on the mother. The changing pattern of her face, her smile, her frown, the joy, the sadness in her eyes is the infant's barometer of reality. If she smiles, I'm good. If she's angry, I'm bad. There was terror in her disapproving glance and bliss when her face shone upon us. So her body is our first information system. If she is warm and sensuous and loves to hold us, we learn that the world is supported by trustworthy and everlasting arms. If she is tense and unhappy, we learn that the world is fearful and filled with nameless dangers. So for most modern sons, mother is a problem that needs to be solved, and men find it difficult to break the symbiotic bond. So Freud said the first major crisis in a boy's life is severing his attachment to his mother and identifying with his father. However, since the Industrial Revolution, the son is more likely to have remained mama's boy than to have identified with any powerful male authority, because dad is no longer present to teach his sons how to become men. The absence of the father from the modern family is what presently disturbs the relationship between mothers and their sons, and therefore between men and women, husbands and wives. Where once there was a father, there is now a vacuum, because dad belongs more to the world of work than to the family. Someone using swag statistics, and we're going to define this swag as scientific wild-ass guesses.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Has
what I think.
estimated. I like that. Scientific wild-ass guesses, swag. Let's use swag a lot.
Yeah.
Has estimated that prior to World War II, men spent about 4 hours a day with their children. Then between World War I and World War II, 2 hours, and since World War II, 20 minutes. So ambivalence is the consequence of the modern mother-son relationship. The son experiences the mother as nearly omnipotent because, especially now, she works outside the home, she manages the household, she provides for his daily needs. And he learns from the rhetoric and values of the surrounding society that men are less important than, or that women are less important than men, and that child rearing is an inferior task. That men have real power and authority, and that what counts is success in the public arena of business and politics. So the son is faced with a tragic, schizophrenic choice. If he is to become a man and play a role in the real world, he must deny his visceral knowledge of the goodness of mothers carrying power and join the political conspiracy to keep women in their place in the missionary position beneath men. Meanwhile, the son must develop various strategies to deal with the power of the mother. He may surrender, becoming a mama's boy, and devote his life to pleasing her and later his wife or lover. If he takes this tack, his relationships with women will be dominated by the desire to perform well, to gain approval, and to avoid female anger or rejection. Or he can take an opposite course and reduce females to either servants or sex objects. And we see that widely today. So we need to again define what it is, redefine everything. So men need to recollect their experiences and re-own their repressed knowledge of the power of woman and cease establishing their manhood in reactionary ways. If men do not, they will continue to be workers, desperately trying to produce trinkets that will equal woman's creativity. macho men who confuse swagger with independence. And that's very true. And as women, we also need to recollect our experience and re-own our knowledge of our equality and cease establishing ourselves in reactionary ways to men. Also, I don't have any more wisdom about that. That will come. This is going to be mostly men-oriented because that's the book, the author I got it from, but it also applies to women. But I'm just open for more about this. I think the biggest part about this is realizing that we are baby formation experiencers, not creators and birthers. But men can also be birthers, just not of two-legged babies. So the urgency men feel about sex, intimacy, and marriage and getting things right with women is precisely what drives the anxiety that forces men into relationships in which they betray their manhood and do violence to women. So let's look at the journey of manhood and womanhood. And like I said, this is going to be very heavily manhood oriented because that's what I have. But I'm going to try to relate it to women too. So not try, I'm doing. As Yoda said, there is no try, there is only do. So if an anthropologist from Mars, Yoda, were to study Earth cultures, he or she would notice something very strange. Everywhere he or she would find a social obsession with manliness. He or she would find that manhood is considered a chancy thing, a prize, a puzzle, difficult to solve, a test to be passed. Men and women alike constantly exhort little boys to act like a man, to be muy macho, a big man, a real man, an alpha male. Yet, however, teaching animals, there really is no such thing as the alpha male. Really. It's more it's more of an alpha female in my goat herds. But they all work together. My two bucks are constantly vying between each other for no, I'm gonna fuck her, no, I'm gonna fuck her, no, I'm gonna and it goes between but bottom line is they're best friends and they're a herd and they all move together. There is no such thing as alpha male, really, truly.
So not even in the animal, would you say?
Huh? Yeah, no, not even in the animal world. It's the same with the bulls. I used to have two bulls. They got along well. They were all a big family. They'd have their moments of fighting, but
yeah.
So we have this picture of alpha malehood that's not true. So men live under the constant dread of being labeled a sissy, a weakling, a wimp, a queer. And most everywhere, they live under pressure, stress, and the constant need to prove themselves by establishing mastery in the arenas of war, work, and women. So a near universal creed linking manhood with the socially necessary activities of protecting, providing, and procreating is in men. People like the Tahitians who encourage men to be gentle, easy, graceful, generous to strangers, and slow to take offense, and unconcerned with defending masculine honor are rare. So there is this. The Tahitians encourage their men to be gentle, easy, graceful, generous, slow to take offense, unconcerned with defending masculine honor. There is that archetype.
Okay.
So our Martian anthropologist would find seeming formal rites and informal customs that are designed to turn males into men. So the cycle of human life as we see it from a human standpoint naturally suggests there should be at least 4 major rites of passage for every person: birth, coming of age, marriage, and death. I'll argue with that, but I'm not going to argue with it tonight. I think that's cultural. I think that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go into the first rite then of passage, is the rite of war and the warrior psyche or the warrior archetype. Why has the history of what we dare to call progress been marked by an increase in the quantity of human suffering? Does excess testosterone condemn men to violence and early heart attacks? Or maybe we could just blame men as a faulty design of nature rather than our willfulness. The bottom line is that men are systematically conditioned to endure pain, to kill, and to die in the service of the tribe, nation, or state. So the capacity and willingness for violence has been central to the definition of being a man. The male psyche has been built upon the concept of I conquer, therefore I am. So men have been culturally conditioned with conquest, killing, or dying in mind. The warfare system has become such an accepted part of the social and psychological horizon within which we live that its formative influence on everything we are and do has become largely invisible. The warfare system has formed the eyes through which we see war, which means we are encompassed with the myth of war. We assume war is just the way things are.
Yeah.
So we need to see how the war system has been constructed, which we have done, and then to undertake the risk of forming, not creating, a new system. Because we can't bring anything into existence. It's already all there.
Mm.
Modern psychology has given us two great intellectual tools that can help us understand the warrior psyche, the warrior archetype. Freud's first one is Freud's idea of defense mechanism, and then Wilhelm Reich's notion of character armor. So here are Freud's armaments of the ego. Number one is repression, the exclusion of a painful idea and its associated feeling from consciousness. Number two is isolation. The splitting off of appropriate feelings from ideas is obvious in our habit of thinking calmly about nuclear destruction. Number three is reaction formation, which is replacing an unacceptable drive with its opposite. So this shows up in naming a missile a peacekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Number four is displacement, directing an unacceptable wish away from its original to a less threatening object. Number five is projection, attributing an, I think I lost my count there, attributing an unacceptable impulse to somebody else, which allows us to claim that the enemy is planning to destroy us. And then there's denial. Remaining unaware of the painful reality is evident in the pretense that we can use nuclear weapons against an enemy without destroying ourselves. And last is rationalization, using reasons to disguise one's unconscious motives that was used when we announced to the world that we sent arms to the Contras only because we wanted to help them remain free, not because we want to dominate Central America. So then Wilhelm Reich added a crucial twist to the notion of these defense mechanisms. Not only with the mind, but the body is formed by living in the ambience of threat and violence. So men, the designated warriors, gradually form character armor, which is a pattern of muscular tension and rigidity. And I'm going to say it's not muscular, it's fascial. It's in the fascia, it's not muscular. Need to change that because find outdated errors wherever, outdated. So a pattern of muscular fascial tension and rigidity that freezes them into a posture that is appropriate only for fighting. The shoulders are back, the chest is out, the stomach is pulled in, the anal sphincter is tight, the balls are drawn up into the body as far as possible, the eyes narrowed, breathing short and anxious, heart rate accelerated, and testosterone in full flow. So the warrior's body is perpetually uptight and ready to fight. And I saw this in my third husband, who was a martial artist. Every picture he had that, right? Kind of like a I always wondered about that, but I didn't realize that was character armor. So condition a man or woman to value aggression above all other virtues, and you will produce a character type whose most readily expressed emotion will be anger. And yeah, that's a very readily expressed emotion in me. Wow. Why? Oh my, because we had a God that rejected us continuously.
Mm-hmm.
Condition a woman or man to value submission above all attitudes, and you will produce a character type whose most readily expressed emotion will be sadness. It's the other side of me. Right? Because we were taught submission, especially as women. This is just, it's just amazing how this all falls into place. So here are some characteristics of the warrior psyche. While a dramatic heroic stance, the warrior's world is structured on one of the oldest dramatic principles: conflict between an antagonist and a protagonist, and violent emotions: hate and love, loyalty and betrayal, courage and cowardice. Willpower, decision and action. The warrior psyche has little time for contemplation, appreciation, and simple enjoyment. It is a mind disciplined to strategic thinking, as it asks how rather than why. A sense of adventure, danger, and excitement, and heightened awareness that comes from living in the presence of death. By remaining in the excitement of the ambience of violent death, he escapes the anxiety and courage of having to live creatively with the prospect of a normal death. The identification of action with force. When politics reaches a point of impotence, the warrior's imagination turns immediately to the use of force, and we saw that yesterday with Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth. A paranoid worldview. The warrior is marked by a negative identity. His or her life is oriented against the enemy, the rival, the competition. Ha ha. That was, yeah, that's out there, right? So then the repression of fear, compassion, and guilt, and obsession with rank and hierarchy, because rank limits responsibility. So does hierarchy. Oh, and lastly, the degrading of the feminine. And what's the one thing they said? No more women in the military.
When they say that?
Yesterday.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep.
That's...
Yeah. I mean, they put us back. I mean,
that's
they put
such
us
a
back
turnaround from what was happening with the Democrats.
Yeah.
But that's the game. Is like the more you can make the pendulum swing, keep people like shifting.
Yeah, exactly.
That abruptly, the more everybody's distracted with. Yeah.
Exactly. So to the degree that a culture is governed by a warfare system, which is what we are governed by, absolutely 100%. The entire globe is governed by a warfare system. It will reduce women to second-class citizens whose function is to essentially service warriors. In the last generation, the women's movement has made us aware of the ways that women have been victim of men's violence. But men are violent, and men are violent not because of the systemic violence done to their bodies and spirit. The advent of total war and nuclear weapons has recently forced women and children to live with the dead weight of the threat of annihilation that men have always felt in times of war or peace. In the old war code, warriors were expendable, but women and children were to be protected. No one even suggested that men's lives have a claim to the sanctity and protection afforded, in theory, to women and children. It is wrong to kill women and children, but men are legitimate candidates for systemic slaughter or cannon fodder. Think of this cognitive dissonance. So the wounds that men endure and the psychic scar tissue that results from living with the expectation of being a battlefield sacrifice is every bit as horrible as the suffering women bear from the fear and reality of rape. I'll agree with that. So when human beings organize their political lives around a war system, men bear as much pain as women. men's bodies are violated because they're regularly slaughtered and mutilated, and if they survive battle, they will bear the burden of blood guilt. Until we accept the war system, men and women alike tacitly agree to sanction the violation of flesh. Or when we accept the war system, that's what we do. Sorry, not until. When we accept the war system, men and women alike tacitly agree to sanction the violation of the flesh. Until we women are willing to weep for and accept equal responsibility for the systematic violence done to the male body and spirit by the war system, it is likely that men will not lose enough of their guilt and regain enough of their sensitivity to weep and accept responsibility for women who are raped and made to suffer the indignity of inequality. We miss the mark if we do not see that manhood has traditionally required selfless generosity, even to the point of sacrifice. To support his family, a man has to be distant, away hunting or fighting wars. To be tender, he must be tough enough to fend off enemies. To be generous, he must be selfish enough to amass goods, often by defeating other men. And to be gentle, he must first be strong, even ruthless in confronting enemies. To love, he must be aggressive enough to court, seduce, and win a wife. This has caused masculinity to evolve into a shell of muscle and will wrapped around a vacuum of emptiness. So as we've talked about before and will continue, again, the indigenous people of the Americas, when they went to war, they never totally annihilated the other. They would count coup and they would whatever, right? What did that other tribe do? We'll go do the same and we're done. We don't even know if they thought of that other as the enemies. And it wasn't until the colonizer, settlers, conquistadors came along with war as totally annihilation of the other that this warrior archetype that we have today really developed. And this archetype, though this archetype seems for men only, I have found this pattern in myself of wanting to totally annihilate, not necessarily kill, but definitely not kill. That's never come to my mind. But to annihilate the other's opinions or thoughts or resistance. So where did this programming come from? Well, probably out of the story of a very jealous, vengeful, wrathful God who punishes disobedience that came out of the Council of Nicaea and the Council of Carthage from Rome. A God who said, I will visit the sins of the fathers on the third and fourth generations. Karma! A God who said that whoever blasphemes my name will be put to death. And those lines in the Bible came from the God of Moses, so way before the councils, 3,000 years to be exact. So it's really time for us to start redefining the warrior archetype and free ourselves from the psychological warfare that was imposed starting 3,000 years ago and still continues to be used. It's time for us to change it for both men and women. And that's where we'll end tonight, because the next one, the right of work, economic man, is a whole nother Pandora's box.
Okay. So that's going to be for next week?
Yeah, we're going to continue with this fire in the belly on becoming a divine human being, womanhood and manhood.
Okay.
So this is going to be a long journey.
Alrighty. So yeah, war is not over, and it won't be over until we choose to stop participating in it. And if you ask yourself, how do I do that? Well, take a look at alohanidaliving.com.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of people really getting it. And we hope to be one of them. So please take a look at that. And we hope that you can choose to leave war and to join the peacemakers, the Relovution.
Yeah.
So with a lot of love, we'll leave you for next week. And I'm going to do it at 8 o'clock next week. And that was supposed to be this week at 8, but I missed it. So, but next week it will be 8 o'clock. The Fire in the Belly, Woman and Manhood, Part 2.
Yep.
Okay. So there's the invitation. Anything else you want to tell our viewers?
Well, and then the week after that, we might be doing a live stream from Cusco, Peru,
Amazing.
relating telling about my experiences of touring the Sacred Valley of the Incas.
All right. So we're not going to do a continuation of this conversation in that
Not
week.
till I get back from Peru.
Oh, that's cool. All right. So yeah, that'll be fun to check out how you're doing. Hope you get some good signal. And yeah, Peru's not as bad as Bolivia as far as internet. So we hope to see you there and see what you can bring, what you can share, what images we can see, and what stories you can share. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So we hope to see you then every week. Here we are. We continue to be here. We continue to be the peacemakers, and hope you can join us one day. Thank you for watching. See you next week.